Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lena and I make college and book related content here on YouTube. And today I felt like going book shopping. I haven't been book shopping in a hot minute and really not to a bookstore in months and months and months, but I have been to my bookstore at my college, which is like a little different, but there are books there. But I'm basically going because my job is taking me there today in an area where there are local independent bookstores, so I felt like stopping by. I haven't talked about it a lot on my channel, I know, but basically I have a couple different jobs this summer, and for one of my jobs I am one of the campaign organizers for a campaign in my state, and basically I just have lots of different campaign related jobs, and today I'm going to be dropping off lawn signs at people's houses who ordered lawn signs, and that will bring me in an area where there are local independent bookstores, so I thought I would stop by on the way there or on the way back depending, and take you along with me because I love book shopping. I love book shopping vlogs, and so hopefully you do too. But without further ado, I'll show you the books that I'm reading currently, and then we need to get on the road and deliver those signs. So this is the book that I am reading right now, Anger's a Gift by Mark Oshiro. And I bought this book actually for my sister for Christmas, and I've been wanting to read it for some time, and I'm finally getting the chance. I also picked it up for Pride Month because there is excellent LGBTQ representation in this book. I will say I'm almost done, as you can see, and I am not loving it really at all. More thoughts to come in my wrap up. I'm struggling with a lot of aspects of this book. I love the concept of the book, and I think it has really powerful, important ideas, but I don't know if it's carrying through. And after I finish that, continuing with the Pride Month theme, my plan is to read Picture of Dorian Gray. And I've been wanting to read this book for a while. I'm an English major. I should read something by Oscar Wilde, because I don't think I've read anything yet, though I have seen some of his plays. But without further ado, let's get on the road. So we just dropped off the signs I needed to for my work, and now we are at the bookstore and we're gonna head in. And I did bring only cash this time because I'm going to try to limit myself to how many books I'm going to get. But hopefully they'll have some new releases in, and I'll just show you, the great books that they have. And don't forget, support your local bookstores. Now 2 days after we went book shopping, and I am back at home ready to share with you all the book that I got book shopping, and then some of the library books that I've checked out recently. So it'll be like a library book haul and book shopping haul, so I'll share those with you. To be honest, I went to a bookstore that I haven't been to in many years, definitely before the pandemic started, but I don't know how many years before that. And the bookstore was so different. It used to be like a very large, relatively large for a small independent bookstore, and when we went back it was really only like 1.5 rooms and like very small rooms, so there wasn't actually a lot of books, which was kind of sad. And my mom was saying that she thinks like the pandemic hit them kind of hard. So to be honest, I went there kind of wanting to get a fantasy book, or I had a couple newer titles in mind, but they didn't really have the books that I was interested in getting. And so I was on the fence of getting a book that I already read and just wanted to add to my collection. I looked at Crooked Kingdom. I looked at the rest of the Bear and the Nightingale trilogy. as well as some other fantasy books that I want to complete series, but I ended up deciding I wanted to get a new book, and that book was Detransition Baby by Tori Peters. This is a very well-known book. I believe it came out last year, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just see. Yes, it came out in 2021, and my sister's already got hot glue on my book. That's very nice. Very, very anticipated. I've been wanting to read it for quite some time. I debated getting it before I left for France, but it was only in hardcover, and I wanted to wait till it came out in a paperback. And it just has gotten so many rave reviews, and I think especially during Pride Month, as I'm pushing myself to read more books that explore experiences of the LGBTQ community, or even just authors who are part of that community and can share any aspect of their experience or just their work in general, I want to read more of. And I also use this month as a chance to just make my TBR for like future months when I'm looking for books to read. And so I'll just read you the back of this book. It says, Reese almost had it all: a loving relationship with Amy, an apartment in New York City, a job she didn't hate. She had scrapped together what previous generations of trans women could only dream of, a life of mundane, bourgeois comforts. The only thing missing was a child, but then her girlfriend, Amy, detransitioned and became Amos, and everything fell apart. Now Reese is caught in a self-destructive pattern, avoiding her loneliness by sleeping with married men. Amos isn't happy either. He thought detransitioning to live as a man would make life easier, but that decision cost him his relationship with Reese, and losing her meant losing his own family. Even though their romance is over, he longs to find a way back to her. When Amos's boss and lover, Katrina, reveals that she's pregnant with his baby and that she's not sure if she wants to keep it, Amos wonders if this is the thing he's been waiting for. Could the three of them form some kind of unconventional family and raise the baby together? This provocative debut is what happens at the emotional, messy, vulnerable corners of womanhood that platitudes and good intentions can't reach. Tori Peters brilliantly and fearlessly navigates the most dangerous taboos around gender, sex, and relationships, giving us a thrillingly original, witty, and deeply moving novel. So I've wanted to read this book for a myriad of reasons, mostly because of the good reviews it got, but also I'm just really fascinated with the concept of womanhood, as it says on the back, and kind of how it challenges the like heteronormative cisgender concepts that we have. And I'm just really, I can't say it enough. I'm excited to read this book. I'm hoping it doesn't let me down, but I don't think it will, just based on everything I've heard about it. After my sister and I finished at the bookstore, we stopped at a little like lending library that we have on the side of the road, and I decided to get The Children of Green No, is maybe how you say it. And this is the first book in a fantasy series from the 1950s, which I just found absolutely fascinating that this book and this like genre was existing in the 1950s. It sounds really cute. There are three children, Toby, Lynette, and Alexander, and then there is Tolly, who meets them all. And it just sounds really adorable. It was reprinted in the early 2000s. That's what this edition is from. And I just kind of want to read about this book that sounds like it paved the way for a lot of fantasy that would come in the decades later. So I'm looking forward to reading this and then eventually returning it to that little library. And then I got a bunch of books from my local library in the next town over. One of them that I got was King and the Dragonflies by Kaysen Callender. The book is about King, who is a young boy living in the South. His older brother Khalid unexpectedly died, and it was really horrific for the family, and King is really trying to deal with the grief. He's convinced that his brother has come back in the form of a dragonfly, so he's always looking at the dragonflies around him. Meanwhile, there are a lot of other issues going on in the town surrounding homophobia and racism and all the things like that. So King has to navigate his grief along with his newly forming identity that he's trying to grapple with, and it's just a lot for him to handle. I've actually already read this book and I really enjoyed it for the most part, so definitely check out my reading wrap-up at the end of this month. The next book that I checked out was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I am currently reading this book. I'm not very far into it so far, but this is a classic from the end of the 19th century. And I've just been wanting to read Oscar Wilde for some time now. I've seen some of his plays, but I've never actually read any of his books. And so I just barely started this one, and I'm hoping I'll enjoy it, but honestly, I don't really know. The next book that I checked out of the library was The Dark Queens by Shelley Puhak. Maybe it's how you say her last name. I'm not quite sure. I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But this is a non-fiction book. It's also a new release. And I got this book because I got this book for a couple reasons. First, I was just interested in the cover, but I also got it because I am doing a French final project for my senior year on Anne of Brittany, who was a medieval queen of France. And so these are two queens in the French region before France was France. And I just need to do like some background research on queens before Anne and how they kind of wielded their own power and how gender shaped their ability to have power. And so I thought I might as well start out with these two women. It features Brunhild and Fred Gund. I'm just really interested in learning more about their stories, learning more about the time period. They're hundreds of years before Anne, but I think it'll serve as really great context for her. And I also just like love the medieval period and reading about the history from that time and stories from that time. So really looking forward to this. I'm hoping to get to this in the next week or so. The next book that I checked out of the library was I Must Betray You by Ruta Septis. Again, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I read all of this author's books. I'm obsessed with her work. When I heard that this book was coming out, I immediately added it to my TBR, and I've been waiting to get home because I knew my library had it in stock. So this book takes place in Romania in 1989 as communist regimes are starting to fall apart all around really like Eastern Europe and Asia. It's about a 17-year-old Christian who really wants to become a writer, but unfortunately he can't. He actually ends up being blackmailed by the secret police to become an informer, and he's left with this really hard decision of being an informant and betraying people he loves or protecting himself in his own life, which is an immensely hard decision that I can't even begin to fathom. It's categorized as a historical thriller, and I read a lot of historical fiction. That's mainly what Ruta writes. But I have not read a lot of thrillers because they scare me. So I'm hoping this book won't scare me too much, but I definitely am looking forward to it, and I just love all of her work and cannot recommend it enough. Last book that I got out of the library is also a new release. It's called The Justice of Kings by Richard Swan. I honestly hadn't really heard of this book until I was going through the new book section, the browsing collection in my library, and it caught my eye. I've been really on the kick about fantasy for the last month or so. I heard some good things about this book. I also thought that the premise was very interesting to me. The novel takes place in the Empire of the Wolf, which is really starting to fall apart with all of this unrest and rebellions and riots and things like that. And Sir Conrad von Valt is one of the justices, and he does a lot of work to quell these uprisings and kind of figure out what's going on, as well as his protege Helena Sedenka, and they are tasked with figuring out what happened to this aristocrat who was murdered. And when they start investigating, they uncover this very large conspiracy that goes all the way back through imperial times. Again, they're faced with the choice of upholding the law that they've been tasked with or trying to get to the bottom of this. It's kind of like a mystery fantasy fusion. I'm really interested in that concept, and I'm hoping that I really enjoy it because I've been really wanting to read more fantasy recently, and also I want to read more new releases, so hopefully I'll be able to accomplish both of those things by reading this book. So those are all the books that I checked out of the library, and the book that I bought at the bookstore, and then the book that I found at the lending library. Quite a variety and collection of books, but I'm really excited to read them all this month and in the following months. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Book recommendations as well are always welcome. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I will see you all next week.